What's going on, everybody? Today we're going over 5 Ableton hacks that I wish I knew when I started. The first thing we got to talk about is using utility for the volume. And this is especially handy when you're doing automations in your beats. So let's say on the intro here, I want my melody to start at a lower volume and progress up. We could go into the mixer here and we could just automate the track volume. But the problem with doing that is as soon as we touch this, our volume meter becomes stuck in this automation. So now if we go ahead and change this, it's going to disable everything, cause a bunch of problems. You could re-enable it, and then you could go in here and just adjust this instead, right? It just becomes annoying after a while, especially when you're in the mixdown process. You're not going to want to do that. Instead of that, we can just go ahead and automate the gain on this utility here, and then boom. Now, if we need to go back and mixdown and change our volume, it's not going to cause us a bunch of problems. Now, you could also do this in reverse. So if you happen to automate the volume and you don't want to go backwards, well, just put a utility on the channel and use that as the volume fader. This next hack saved me so much time, it should be illegal, but this is a super easy way to stretch or shrink a sample. So I love Simpler, being able to put it into one-shot mode, and then you can use the faders here to change the samples. Same in classic mode. You could basically turn down the sustain and use the decay. Otherwise, you can go over here and kind of further tweak that. But what if you want to stretch it? So here's that hi-hat sample. If we go in here, we need to make sure this is warped for this to work. Now, what you can do is when you go towards the edge, you can see it gives us these little brackets here. And if you hold down Shift, this little arrow is going to pop up, and you can see as we start to move it, now we can easily shrink it or stretch it depending on which way we move. You can see that it starts to get robotic, so you're probably only going to push this a little ways. So there you go. That can be so useful in so many cases. 808s, kicks, every single drum, anything you can think of, really. The next thing we got to talk about is the effect rack chain macro. We're just going to use one macro. So we're going to call this the chain selector. Now let's go ahead and open up our chain list. And what this can be really useful for is if you want to cycle through all of your favorite sounds. So maybe you have a ton of different 808s that you like, and you like them a certain way, right? Maybe I like this one a little bit shorter. So let's actually duplicate this because maybe I want a longer version. Ooh, that one sounds fire as well. I want to make sure I have that as an option. So you can go through here and you can pick out all of your favorite 808 samples. You could even use drum racks if you want. So you could have a bunch of different kits, and then you can cycle through them using the chain selector. So what we can do is we can click this chain right here. By default, it's going to be hidden. Everything's going to have its own chain lane. What you got to do is you got to scoot everything over. So for however many samples you want to have, you're just going to do that for all of them. You can go up to 127. So now what we can do is we can map this. Map, we're going to click on the chain and we're going to map it here. And you might want to limit it. So let's say, for our case, we only have 3 right now. However many it is, we're going to go ahead, you can limit it. So that way you don't end up in nothing land. Get rid of this list altogether. And now we just have a chain selector. I just finished setting up our sample share on our website, and this is 100% free for everyone to use. Check this out. This is an area where we can share kits and samples with each other and collaborate, and we have a whole lounge area in here as well. And I'm going to be dropping some exclusive kits in here from time to time, so jump in here with us. It's free. I'll leave a link in the description below. But let's get back into the video. Next, we got to talk about Ableton's resampling, because I was not taking advantage of this when I started making music. And it's so useful, and there's a couple of use cases where it's a must. In this beat right here, I actually resampled my melody onto this lane right here. As you can see, I have my melody actually fully tracked out here. So that's one thing, is you can save a backup of it without having to freeze and flatten everything. Let's go ahead and make a new audio track, set this to resampling mode, click record. Let's go ahead and solo this and our melody group. That's what makes it nice, is you can solo the entire group. Changes back to no input. Now what we could do is we could deactivate everything here, pressing 0 on the keyboard. We even turn that off, so everything is off, right? It's going to save us that CPU, and we can have a backup of it if we need it later. You can now pitch this up or down. It makes it super simple instead of having to use a plugin to do that. Before we get into the last one, I do have one bonus that is insane. So for the guys that are still watching this video, I appreciate you, and let's jump into this. So there's actually a low resolution mode on your plugins. So it could save you CPU to turn off the high quality mode, but it could also be nice to get some gritty distortions from things like this saturator. By default, if we leave high quality mode, by the way, this saturator right now is on my master. I have soft clip on, so I'm using it as a soft clipper, and I'm just leaving it in analog. Let's hear it. Let's turn it off. If you pay attention, if you're listening with headphones, you can probably notice it's a little fuzzier. It sounds a little more like the Fruity Soft Clipper. So there you go. They're using a low quality saturator sort of a noise to get that effect. The last one we got to talk about is how to automate things inside of your plugins. So let's use FabFilter as an example. And we want to use a shelf here to open up as the track gets introduced. Click this down arrow. It's going to open up this sidebar. You're going to click configure, and then you're going to want to touch whatever it is. So we want to automate the frequency here. Boom. And you're going to see it's going to pop up down here. We can turn it off now, put it here and right here. So let's go all the way down. So as our track opens up here, let's do that. As our track gets introduced, it's going to open up. So those were our 5 hacks, but if you want some more workflow tips that are going to save you so much time when you're making music, definitely check out this video next.